Apparently, Jeremiah Smith is more superhuman than us Ohio State fans even had thought he was. And if you've been following the development of him through on social media or any possible way to see like what he's been up to, I know since the end of last year, and as general for big Ohio State fans or college football fans in general, you're just looking for any possible information. We sort of seen it. And then the words came out of Ryan Day's mouth. He went out and said that Jeremiah Smith has gotten bigger, stronger, and faster. And it's like, oh yeah, this kid is 19 years old. Of course that's going to happen. You almost remember yourself. When I was 19 years old, I was 6'1", and I grew another 3 inches. And the next 2 years, I continued to develop and got a little bit bigger, stronger, faster when I was a college athlete. But Jeremiah Smith, it's exactly what's going to happen. And the fact that he already, Ryan Day said in the conference when asked the question was like, yeah. Coach Mick, he's saying that Jeremiah is finishing first in every single warm-up drill. And that is exactly why Jeremiah has the expectations that us as Buckeye fans do that are so high for him to be the best Ohio State wide receiver ever, for him to be a Heisman finalist and at some point a Heisman Trophy winner in the next 2 years as a Buckeye and maybe even a national champion once again, is because he doesn't need to be motivated. He is fired from within to go out there and be the best version of himself every single day. We know as people that is incredibly hard to do, that maybe in the sense of everyday life, it can be a lot easier to be nice or be friendly with someone in person, but when it comes to social media or online, we're a little bit more short-tempered to say something negatively out there. Jeremiah's role within this Ohio State team is, of course, a little bit more expanded. The fact that he's a true sophomore, 19-year-old, to be out there at media days, to have that responsibility on him now, believe that Ryan has a purpose with that. Of course, that would have been talked about the Ryan and Brian Hartline. They want to see a bigger role for Jeremiah, and that as a man, as he continues to develop and grow into being a true, leader and individual, that the vocal part is just necessary, that he can be the best, demonstrator of leadership with his on-field abilities, but it's the off-the-field stuff besides just the example that you set. Now, it's so interesting how we hype up these types of events, are so excited to hear the players play or looking for the press conferences, and then it's like, oh yeah, they're players. They make plays on the field a lot more interesting typically to watch than to listen to. So, relatively underwhelming in the sense of what Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith were saying. And that's exactly, to be honest, the way a big Ohio State fan or all of us want it to be. We don't want to be hearing anything that makes us turn our heads or hear them saying out of the ordinary. And this is a group that isn't necessarily so tight-lipped. These guys, that's just truly who they are. They're vocal, they're themselves, they're true to themselves, which is just guys like Sonny that, have a younger brother on this team, Lorenzo Styles, and the two of them being starters that look to be the best version of themselves and to not really be all about the talk. Caleb Downs, not really all about the talk. He's asking questions. How can he get better, within the meeting room? We know the story of him and Jim Knowles, him wanting to know every single little detail of the defense, knowing that Ohio State was going to be the right fit for him. And you can bet him and Matt Patricia have spent countless hours together. And so that Caleb Downs can have the same type of impact, if not larger, on the scope of all of next year, because for pretty much the season during that Oregon game, Caleb didn't have the impact that he did the next half of the year, where you could arguably say he was the best defensive player in college football. And if he used in the same way and stays healthy, he can be the best defensive player in college football and see himself possibly be a Heisman finalist right there with Jeremiah, or right there with Julian Sayin. Julian Sayin, not that he was out there with him, but all of the reports about this kid, the question of the leader, he won't be what Will Howard was. You don't have the same personality, and where Julian grew up, that part of the country. There's different parts of California where you've got Los Angeles, the SoCal, but Julian's personality is a lot like these guys, where you sort of let your quick release, you sort of let the ball do the talking. Of course, Jeremiah, it's like you're trying to pull teeth to get a long answer out of him, but it's like, what are you expecting the kid to say? He doesn't have motivation to come out and say outwardly things, to be all about the talk. It truly is about letting his body of work and his performance on the field do the talking, because at the end of the day, what gets them paid is their performance now as college football athletes, and probably him and Caleb Downs are going to be, top 3, top 5 picks in the next 2 NFL drafts. We can say the same thing about Carnell Tate. So when Ryan Day is talking about the culture and what he's built, you have to know that he's smiling to think of a guy like Emeka Egbuka last year, that he was that example and how big that was, that he truly came back to show Jeremiah that this is what it's like to be an Ohio State Buckeye and an Ohio State Buckeye wide receiver, which no disrespect to the other positions, is the most prestigious position for Ohio State. We've seen the quarterbacks get drafted in recent memory, which has been better a play translating to the NFL with CJ and Justin, but the wide receiver spots, you will go there, and if you're a starter, expectation is pretty much now that you will be a first-round draft pick, and Emeka showing the reins. Would Jeremiah have had the year he had without Emeka? He could have had a bigger season when it's all said and done, could have gotten more targets, didn't get as many targets as Emeka did next year. We can expect that his role and target share percentage of the time that the football is going his way will be higher next year. We know that learning from Emeka and him being that number 2, being behind Jackson Smith, being behind Marvin Harrison Jr., was able to be a different type of person and set those example of roles and pass that information on to Jeremiah. And then, of course, once we get guys like Caden Dixon-Wyatt and Chris Henry Jr. in the building next spring or next summer, that they will understand and, carry the torch, so to say, in the future as Ohio State Buckeyes. So incredible to hear all of that, that Jeremiah is living it, that everything that we've heard about him, everything that we've seen and continuing to do so is pointing towards the fact that he can truly be one of the greats, that he could be the best wide receiver in the NFL by the end of his rookie season or his second year. It doesn't really matter in the scope of things when he could be dominant in that league, but he's not thinking about the NFL. He's thinking about how can I win each and every game. And Ryan spoke about how JJ was but he was very ill, hard to eat solid food after that loss to Oregon, after that loss to Michigan. The last 7 years, he's used to winning state championships, back to younger ball when, he's less than 5 feet tall, used to winning games. When he's out there, he expects to be the best player on the field and make an impact to win games. Now, this video is not all about him, but it transforms and it ruminates from that caliber of player because he is in that captain type leadership role. They're looking ahead towards Texas, barreling towards it. Of course, it's going to come up. We haven't seen that many number 1 versus 2 matchups in the history of college football, especially in the regular season or for this part in week 1. Haven't seen a matchup like this in such a, in the last real decade plus, to just start off the year. It's a semifinal rematch. Hadn't even had semifinals before 2014. In fact, we get Texas, Ohio State number 1. We will see what they do with the poll, but I would not understand if they didn't put Texas 1, Ohio State 2, or Ohio State 1, Texas 2. It wouldn't make sense. All of this hype around Penn State and people speaking them up, sure, but why take a tiny bit of the sizzle? Not that the game won't be just as big if Ohio State's ranked 3 or Texas is 3 or whatever, but why do that when the loser of Ohio State-Texas game is going to get bumped out of the top 2, and then a team like Penn State, they get a win, or Georgia, Alabama, whoever's there at number 3 will just slide into that 2 spot. The loser of the game to start the year is going to probably go down to 4, 5, 6. That's usually about what happens after that game, sort of just even not determined on the score. A lot of other big games in college football. Week 1, you're going to see Miami, Notre Dame, Clemson, LSU. So very high-profile matchups with the fact that they don't even hold a candle in the grand scope of who's going to be competing for a national championship. And we could obviously see a rematch once again in the college football playoff or in the national title game. The main concerns, right, for the Buckeyes for this upcoming season. Number 1 is defensive line. When you have 4 new starters, and I can immediately point to the fact that Edric Houston's been there, Kenyatta Jackson's been there, Caden Curry, he had a sack in the Rose Bowl. These guys have been on that front, just haven't had the starting roles in the huge bulk of the responsibility. You know, Jermaine Matthews, Jalen McClain, like they've been on this team. Lorenzo Styles, like let's keep going down this list. They've all been there, just haven't had that huge role. And it's not veteran, but it's close to that, where you could see once the defense is set, by the time you face a Penn State in the middle of the season at home, that this defense could be hit in stride, sort of where the Buckeyes did right after that Oregon game where they hit Nebraska. Then Penn State, saw them play well against Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, Michigan. That back half of the year, they are playing the best defense in the entire country. And then, of course, the college football playoff. And then it's the run game. Is it going to be effective with Donaldson? Are we going to see Bo Jackson get carries? James Peoples, who sort of figures to be the number one featured back? I don't see it happening that way this year. See it being a lot like recent memory, where we see two backs being rotated, keeping other guys fresh, but absolutely believe we could see three guys rotating. What to be positive about? Max Clare could wind up being the most effective Buckeye tight end like the last two decades. You know, Cade Stover was very good, but Max Clare could absolutely be an All-American and be just ridiculous in the red zone. Huge on third down. The plays where you've got Jeremiah double or triple covered, and Carnell Tate might have a very tough matchup that might be a strategy we see a lot this year, where a team's number one corner is on Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith is double covered, or even you've got a little bit of underneath help on him. And so who's that third guy looking for an advantage? A safety on Max Clare, or a smaller cornerback on Max Clare. It's a linebacker. He will have to be that key piece to be able to rely on for Julian Sayin to go to a lot of the time. So thank you so much for watching. You can see the Bears stuff in the background, so understand I'm a Buckeye fan and a Bears fan. We're going to be pouring content out as we get set for the start of the college football and NFL season during the season. Super hyped up. I'm sure that you are too. So please subscribe for more content coming out in the future. We're fired up for the start of next year, and we're going to keep the content rolling. So go Bucks. Please subscribe, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blunder. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Blunder. To the 40, 35, 30. Espinosa to the 20.